Alright, Internet World, today we're here to discuss the differences between the 2015 to 2018 Audi Q3 versus the 2019-2020 body style Audi Q3 and the differences. Alright, so in this segment there's tons of product to look at. So what has Audi done differently to bring those clients in? Well, people can look at the Toyota RAV4, they can look at the Hyundai Tucson, they can look at the CR-V, they can look at the Q3, they can look at an X1/X2, they can look at tons of products. So what has Audi done to draw you in to their showrooms over the old generation Audi Q3? So in order to make this appearance bold, Audi took this grille, which is primarily 80% of the front of the car, and they basically try to make a 3D look out of it. So if you look at the hood, if you look at this from above, what you'll see is the emblems actually stick out further, and each little fin here is actually tapered and cutting forward, as opposed to at the front of this Q3 here. Now I understand this does not have S-line. It doesn't taper forward. Actually, these little fins here are on the inside as opposed to the outside, which they've done on that one. So this Q3 is a full redesign. Everything about this Q3 is totally different than this Q3. They do share some similarities, but in reality, this car is totally different. Even the washer fluid position has changed. 2015 position, 2019 position. Visually, these engines look identical. They're both covered in plastic, and you won't be able to tell the difference, except this one's a little bit higher, which is strange. Usually center of gravity, they try to push the motors lower, but this one does sit a little bit higher in the engine compartment. This engine does make 28 horsepower more than the older generation, but visually, it pretty much looks the same, except for some weird reason, they exposed the battery here, whereas in the 2015, it's covered. Something that throws people off is how do you open up the hood on a new generation Q3. They both have dual latches once the hood is down, but to open up this hood, the release is actually on the frame versus on the back of the hood. So on the 15, when you pull the release lever inside the vehicle, it releases both of these latches. However, you have a little spring here that you'd have to pull down to open from the outside. So it's pretty much the exact same thing, except it's reversed. All right, so all North American cars need to have amber lighting for your signals. On the old generation Q5, they're actually on the bumper and there's a bulb on the inside. On the new generation Q5s, they're actually built into the headlight. Same with the fog light. As far as the side mirrors go, there's two changes that have been made. On the old generation, you see a full strip of lighting. On the new generation, they've cut it in half and only put on the edges. All right, hopefully you're not falling asleep by this point, so I'm gonna make it a little bit more interesting here, and we're gonna talk about molding. Who's excited for molding? All right, so on the side here, the silver molding on the existing Q3 is actually placed on the inside of the vehicle, versus the new Q3, it's actually on the frame of the door. So you'll see it go across the door and across, whereas this one, the only thing on the door is the bottom panel here. What they've done in this vehicle, like the Q5s, is they've taken the side mirror and taken it off the corner and have actually put on the body. And that's because the old mirrors were normally bigger on the Q5. With these, they haven't changed the size of it, they've just moved them. Probably because people have been complaining they can't see it and it's in their blind spot when they're making a left turn, they can't see people cross the street. Okay. So to make the Q3 appear wider, they've added an extra line in addition to the shoulder line that goes on the Q3. I'm not sure what this line's called, so somebody can comment below and tell me what it's called. But they've added a line here, and they've added a line going up here, and that's to make the body appear wider, because it's definitely wider and bolder looking than the existing Q3. So this is where Audi flourishes, and that is their lighting. This vehicle has LED headlights standard on every model they sell, but the back of these headlights are awesome with their dynamic indicators. So as far as technology goes, they all have rear beeping sensors, but since this one has automatic parking, they do add sensors on the side so the vehicle can detect what parking spot is empty as it passes through. On the back of them, as far as badging goes, the Q3 still exists on that section. They've made the Q3 badging a little bit bigger. On the right side here, they do not say TFSI anymore. It just simply says Quattro. Everybody's favorite topic, and that's space. How much trunk room does this vehicle have? So with the seats all the way back in the back here. Now remember, the older generation, the back seats do not slide backwards and forwards, but in the new one they do. So right here we have 34.5 inches in terms of space. And in the older generation, we have 35.5 inches. Wow. So now I know the difference on why the back seats of this new Q3 reclines forward and backward. and that's because we lose 1 inch in total length. So as far as the trunk floor goes, this has a higher trunk level than the older generation. The older generation has a little bit more depth to it, and that's probably because this current generation sits a little bit higher than the older generation. So as far as parcel shelf goes, this goes back to the older generation Q5, and you'll see this is a fixed parcel shelf that lifts and drops based on where the trunk lid is. In the older generation, it's a slider. One small thing to mention is lighting. Audi actually added 2 LED lights on the back of the tailgate on the inside. So there's 2 buttons on the back of the tailgate. The one on the left is simply just to close the tailgate or program the height of the tailgate you want to adjust it to. The one on the right is if you're leaving the vehicle and it's the last thing you touch, you hit the button, it closes the tailgate and it locks the doors. So I recently did a video on Q5 versus Q3. So we're going to take some of that video on the interior content and blend it in this video. First impressions on the inside, wow, has Audi done an awesome job with this car. And I'm not saying that because I'm an Audi fan, I'm saying that because this is something that I've not seen from Audi. They mix materials better than anybody in the industry, but this time they're mixing angles and materials that make it slightly different. So in terms of mixing materials, they're mixing a rubberized dash, black polished trim, a gray trim, aluminum appearing trim, stainless steel trim, more rubberized dash, polished aluminum, gloss black aluminum. So a lot of this car is pulled from the new generation of Audi product, and that's usually from a Q8, A6, A7. So it's nice to see some of that hand-me-downs in a Q3, and they've really done an awesome job with the tech on this car. All right, so the virtual cockpit on the Q3 and the Q5 are slightly different. They have a slightly different layout. However, the pixels of quality are very similar, with the exception of Google Earth. This is far cleaner than a Q5. There is nothing in this segment that competes with this Q3. So again, I'm really impressed with Audi's detailed navigation system, their detailed fit and finish. There are some spots here that I'm seeing like, well, why did you put this here? So here's one. So where the start button is a good spot, I just feel like the volume button was placed there after the fact. It was an afterthought. Generally, volume buttons should be somewhere around here, in this position here, or closer here, or maybe here. I don't know, I feel like there is just a little bit too far. I know that I can reach the steering wheel, but I can reach the passenger side HVAC controls before I can reach the volume controls. And most people are going to use the volume controls more often than they're going to use the passenger thermostat. Perfect. So steering wheel is tilt and telescopic like the Q5. All the controls are pretty much exactly the same as all Audis. The lane assist, the wipers, the cruise control, that's all very typical. Armrest is fully adjustable. You can set the height of where you want it. The same amount of heights. There's 5 different heights on the armrest. It goes in and out. Like most Audis, there is a lack of storage space. However, they did add a few pieces here. They did add a deeper coin tray, and the glove box is actually a little bit deeper than the old one by about ½ an inch. One thing I do like though now is the wireless charging. You can simply just take your phone and you can put it right here and it charges up. All right, so the Q3 offers 4 charging ports. 1 USB-C in the front, 1 regular USB in the front, and 2 USBs in the back for the kids. So I've always picked on the things that this car Q3 doesn't offer in terms of quality, but one thing I did notice that they spent money on is the back panel right here. Generally this piece is not looked at with detail, but they did actually match it all the way through this black gloss trim, which is like, hey, we're actually thinking about a few things. Audi's moving towards a lot of touch haptic features, so what they did do, which incorporates part of the Q5, is the reading lights and the map lights. They're all touch, and they're dimmable too. So you hold it down, and it dims. All right, so in terms of the screen and the user interface here, it's very easy to use. The only complaint I have, since Audi hasn't been a touchscreen manufacturer before, is the fingerprints. The fingerprints are crazy. You really need to build something here. So for all my Amazon FBA guys, can build some sort of wiping cloth here that I can automatically wipe this screen and then place it back here. Anyways, very easy to use, radio, media, phone, navigation, and I can move some of these things around because I might want to pull news and messages and weather to the front. and get rid of settings and shortcuts, but it's very easy to use. So if I wanted to say change the radio station, I could either hit that button or hit radio, and it's very easy. And one thing I do like here is I like the fact that it shows you the songs that it's playing as opposed to going to that radio station to listen to see what it's listing. I can go through all the radio stations and see what music I want to listen to. So boom, I want to hit classic rewind, I just hit it and it comes up. And I can set these as presets, but it's very, very easy to use. I can go to settings, and now the sun's out in full swing and I still have perfect visibility on this screen. But it's just super easy to use, and the colors just pop. Like even if you look at the Sirius XM Hits 1, even the little blue rings around the 1 are very, very clear and distinct. There's your media, very easy to use. Your telephone to connect a device is super simple. You hit connect mobile devices, it'll find the devices in the area, and bam, you're connected. But here is the meat and potatoes. This navigation is awesome. This Google Earth is awesome. You can see what kind of roofs are on different buildings. You can see what cars are parked in different buildings. It's not live, but at least you know how much parking spots there are, and you can connect which streets connect to each other, which people have pools, kind of creepy, but still amazing nonetheless. And you can change the view whether you want to have it overhead or 3D as it is right now. In terms of searching for an address, again, super easy. I press the search button. Parking, restaurant, gas stations, super simple. I hit restaurants, and all the restaurants will come that are around me, and that is awesome. Very easy, very quick, which I like to see. If I make a mistake, I just simply put my finger and it cleans it up. I can use Google when I'm connected and basically ask it anything. I can use this little feature here where I can just write in whatever I want. So like I do in the other videos, I'll make this really fast. And the whole screen actually becomes a touchpad. Boom, Toronto. Very easy to use, and it's super fast. If I make a mistake, I can just wipe my hand here, and there we go, it goes away. But again, the only thing I would say is the fingerprints are pretty bad, and well, somebody needs to make something here, we can just wipe it off very easily. Audi does give you a cloth, but I wouldn't say it's bulky, but it's just not an easy thing to place somewhere. So if somebody can make something that clips onto here where you can just wipe it off very easily, then bam. So I want 5% royalties for that idea, thank you very much. When I put it into gear, the lighting and the bulbs that are actually behind here, and it's not very bright out, it's actually overcast. I actually can't see what gear I'm in when I look down. Obviously I do know what gear I've put it in, but in terms of lighting, that lighting should have been red, I think, just to know what gear you're in, because I get a lot of times people want to know what gear they're in, or they look down, they don't know exactly what gear they're in. So that's something new. Also, this shifter kind of feels a little light, a little plasticky, but at the same time, it is not $50,000. It is at a starting price of in the 30s. So anyways, first impression driving it, gas, steering, feels very Audi. This part it's actually quite peppy off the line here. So right now I'm in drive and comfort, and it's pretty good. Feels solid. Feels like a Q5. Feels pretty solid. Definitely it's trending. I mean, I've only driven it for the last 10 seconds, but it's definitely trending more towards a Q5 than it is the old school or the old generation Q3. Steering wheel is very familiar. It's your typical S-line steering wheel. It's a little bit wider, but it's actually kind of like an R8 steering wheel. It is very R8-ish, the steering wheel. They did a great job with the steering wheel. The seat steering wheel, visually what I look at is beautiful. I think I talked a little bit about the HVAC controls, but the HVAC controls are from an A3, which is a smart idea because the old generation had like a click, 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 click. Every half a degree you had to click, and if you held it, it would take about 2 seconds for it to react, for it to move faster than half a degree. But this one's just a quick turn. You can switch temperatures really fast. I know it's a small thing, but when you're trying to change temperatures, when you're either boiling hot or freezing cold, it's rather annoying to go click, 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 click all the time. So my visibility is very good. It is definitely obviously bulkier than the old generation Q3, so I'm sitting more, one of the things I do obviously notice in SUVs, I'm kind of sitting more 90 degrees. I'm not sitting like a car where you're kind of lying down. This still feels like I'm sitting up straight. I'm not exactly lying down, so that feel is the same. Steering is definitely more lighter and a little bit more floaty than the old generation Q3, which is sort of the new trend. People don't really want to feel their cars anymore. They just want to kind of feel something more floaty. I feel like the German cars are getting a bit more floaty and less mechanical, and that's exactly what this thing is doing. But right now my eyes is really focused on the road, but more so on this interior and this dash. Like this dash layout is awesome to look at. Like this Google Maps are awesome to look at. And when I try to pivot in and actually pivot sideways and then focuses in, it doesn't just go in, it pivots on where I'm driving to and then focuses in. That's awesome to see. Radio, easy controls to press. Even when I'm driving, I can still see stuff. I could use the dash behind, but this is just so nice that I just like to click it and touch it. Audi drivers are not really used to having touch products. It's always turn and click. So having a touch product is really nice. Rear view mirror, good visibility, left and right. Even when they shifted the mirrors, it's probably easier to look at actually now that they've made the mirrors a little bit lower. Braking, feels good. It's kind of hard to test it in comfort, so I'm just going to shift it in dynamic. So it makes 226 horsepower, which is a whopping 26 horsepower more than the old one, but I'm sure that it add a little bit of weight to make it kind of null and void, but it does definitely feel a little faster than the old generation. All right, so I pulled in a parking spot and I'm going to test Audi's automatic parking system here. And it's basically just a button you hit and it'll show you where the parking spot is going to be. So you pull up where the empty spot is and then this comes up. And it tells you, please select reverse and take your hands off the steering wheel. Watch the steering wheel. So steering wheel automatically turns for you. This is a pretty tight parking spot, so I'd be pretty impressed if it makes this here. So all I'm doing is just slightly taking my foot off the brake, not touching the steering wheel. It's beeping. It's not telling me to do anything here. I'm assuming I have to put it in forward here. Okay, now it turns me the other way. Straightens me out. I put in reverse. And it's lining me up. And yeah, we got it. Awesome, look at that. And this is a tight parking spot. And I'm talking super tight. As in like, I can literally touch this guy's car. Yeah, I can literally touch his car. And if you look on that side, Ian can literally touch his car. Literally. So this is a very tight parking spot. One thing I did notice though, okay, so now I haven't touched the steering wheel yet and it's still doing its thing and moving. So I think it's trying to correct me one more time. Yep, it's trying to correct me one more time right here. So now it says hit the brake and reverse. There we go. So now it's corrected me again. Perfect. That's automatic parking for you. So the tech in this car is what makes it in my mind. This exterior styling is great. Extra size is awesome. It is plenty peppy enough. You don't need any more power than this. So another thing I want to talk about is the seats. I talked about the seats and how great they are, yada, 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 but these seats are actually pretty much Q5 seats, which is pretty sweet because generally in a Q3, you don't get stuff from a Q5. So as you can see, the differences between both cars are pretty stark on the inside. There's total changes. This car on the inside doesn't look anything like the older generation. The older generation was very, very outdated in today's market, especially with all the competition out there putting a lot of tech in their vehicles. So the Audi Q3 now is at the same level, if not better than most of its competition, but I do love this touchscreen. The fingerprints are a pain, but I can live past that because there's so much here to like. The equipment is never ending. You've got a virtual cockpit, you've got a full touchscreen, you've got news, you've got weather, you've got automatic parking, you've got a fully modern dash, you've got seats that actually adjust to you, not you have to adjust to the seats. You've got a vehicle now that can be upgraded and updated wirelessly. What the older generation Q3 has been called is a glorified Tiguan. The new Q3 is not Volkswagen or glorified anything. It's more like a baby Q8. Alright, so to summarize some of the immediate changes that I noticed between two cars when getting in here, obviously the door handle is a big one. The door handle is upside down, and it's just easier because I put my hand this way and slide this way and it opens right up. Everything else is otherwise pretty Audi on the door panel. but the dash is basically a Q8. It takes everything from a Q8, A6, A7, A8 dash and blends it here right in a Q3. All right, so as I showed you in my last video with the Q5 and the cup holders in the back, I don't know what it is with Audi, but they cannot get these cup holders right in the back. These cup holders are so tiny. You can barely fit this in. Like, you have to really squeeze it in and it fits. But I think they actually put it in the doors is what they were thinking. When I slide this in the doors, it fits perfectly. So really, just get rid of these cup holders, because if anything, they're bothering me with my elbows here. So I'm sitting in the back of the new Q3, and I basically have me as a driver with the exact position I would sit in the front, and me sitting in the back here. How much room do I have? I basically have about just about 5 inches of clearance, and that is a ton of room in a car this segment. And the other cool part is I have 2 USB ports right down there. I don't have to go to the front of the vehicle to get my power from my phone. It's plugged in right there. Also, the back seat reclines, and it reclines quite a bit. So I can move this back seat all the way from here, which I have no idea who'd be sitting this forward, all the way. I can keep reclining this back all the way back. This is luxury in a $42,000 car. All right, so I'm in the back of the 2015 Audi Q3. Push the button, slide this out, put your drink in, and you can put any size drink in the back. Voila. You don't have to use the doors. So Audi, why have you gone backwards with your cup holders? As far as back legroom goes, I'm sitting in the back of the older generation Q3, and I've placed the driver's seat in exactly the position I'd be driving in. And when I do the measurements, I pretty much also have exactly 5 inches. The only difference I've noticed actually is the cutout in the back of these seats are actually deeper in the new generation. So a few things I did catch in the older generation, which I actually preferred in the old one over the new one. One of the things was the real cup holders I talked about. But secondly is the lighting on the gear selector that you're in. The new generation has a white light and the old generation has a red bulb. So the red bulb makes total sense because I can actually see it in the daylight. Whereas in the new generation, it's white and I can't see it. I'm in park now, reverse, neutral, and drive. Versus in the old generation, it's all white. All right, so I hope this video changed the perspective about the Audi Q3. Now when I think about Audi Q3, I think about bolder, fresher. The tech is up to today's standard, as well as it's perfect for somebody that's 1, 2, or 3 people in a family. What do you guys think? Comment below, let me know what you think. And let me know what you think about the other 2 videos I posted on the Q3 versus Q5. They're all kind of similar, but they all have their different angles. I hope you liked it. Comment below. Thanks again for watching.